We are building and deploying this fully responsive financial app landing page using React and Tailwind. This landing page has a navigation bar up top with a link to Google Play. If we click this nav button, we scroll down to a card view of our features. Then we have our partners section, followed by a section that showcases the reviews of our app in a working carousel. At the bottom, we have a footer with page and social media links, and this landing page is fully responsive and looks great across screen sizes, and you will learn how to implement this using Tailwind CSS. This project is perfect for you if you have some experience in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and you're hungry to build a React and Tailwind project. You will learn the fundamentals of React and Tailwind step by step. In addition, you will learn TypeScript, which is a superset of JavaScript, but with type safety built into it. We will use GitHub for version control, GitHub Desktop to update our repository, Visual Studio Code as our code editor, Netlify to deploy our website for free, and as always, you can find the finished code repository in the video description below. Let's get started. As you might know, Create React App is outdated, so we are going to be using Vite to build our React app. And in order to use Vite, you're going to need to have installed Node.js. So if you don't have Node installed, you might very well have that. Go ahead to nodejs.org. I'll also leave a link in the description below, and hit this download Node.js. That's going to download for either Mac or Windows or Linux. It's going to download an installer. And go ahead and run that. Once you have installed Node, go ahead and check the version and check if everything has been installed correctly with Node-V. And you should be seeing a number here. If you haven't, or you see an error message, it means that you haven't got Node installed just yet. So if you're using something like NVM, you can switch your version. It should be above 18, I believe. And if we search Node here, yeah, it should be above version 18 of Node. Now that we have Node installed, we're going to create our React app. So let's close the terminal for now. And then we're going to open our browser again. We're going to go to github.com and we're going to sign in or sign up if we don't have an account. Then we're going to go to GitHub Desktop and we're going to download that for our Mac or for our Windows, Linux, whichever system. We are going to open GitHub Desktop and we are also going to sign in here with our GitHub account to sync those. Then we are going to create a new repository. We're going to click Add here, create a new repository. We're going to say Kobo Drop app. Let's say you can call this whatever you want. Then I'm going to publish repository. I'm going to keep this code public, but you can keep yours private if you want. We're going to click publish. And now we have our published repository that is currently empty, as we can see here. Then we are going to download Visual Studio Code if we don't have that from code.visualstudio.com. Again, download that for your system using the installer. Pretty easy setup. You might need to restart GitHub Desktop. You should have this link here open in Visual Studio Code. So we're opening our repo in Visual Studio Code. And there we go. We have this Git attributes. We can delete that like so. So we have a completely empty project here. Now we're going to open the terminal here inside of Visual Studio Code. And I'm going to make the screen a bit bigger. As we can see, I am inside of the current repository. Now we're going to write npm create vite at latest. And then we're also going to add a space and a dot so that we create it inside of this current folder instead of creating an under folder now. So hit enter. It's asking us to select the framework. We're going to choose React. Then we are going to choose TypeScript, and it's done. And that is how fast Vite is. So now we get a message here, we're done. We're also going to npm install all the packages we have here now. Hit that and let the terminal do its magic. We see we've gotten a couple of more files, and now we're going to hit npm run dev. And we get our link to our local host that is running our website. And here we can see we have our like template up and running, and we can increase the count here, which is everything that this starting app does. But we see that it's running, it's loading all the images. So now we have our base project that we can build upon. And we're going to minimize the base project. We can also close the terminal. It's running in the background. So just to give a quick run through what we have here in our Vite project, we have our public folder, we have our node modules. That's fine enough. The public folder has the Vite icon. We can just delete that actually. We're not going to use that. We have our asset folder, also with the React icon we saw on the website. We can also delete that. We are not going to be needing it. We have the app CSS. Also, that's the base styling that we have. We can target all of that and delete that because we're going to create our own styling from scratch. And then we have the app. This is basically the entry point for the whole project. That's everything we see now in our app. If we open it up, yeah, of course, now we don't have, we're missing a couple of logos. Let's remove that. Let's see here. Yeah, we also have them here. Let's remove these logos like so. And now we see we have the app is still here without the Vite and React logo. All of the components, everything we are going to be building is going to come through this main app.tsx here. So this is kind of we're going to reference all the other component inside of here through this file. But we can delete everything inside here. We can delete this use state, and we can just write app like so, so that we can, we're going to give this an H1, copy that, put that in there, like so. Then we can clearly see app is running, it's displaying what we want, but it's very bare bones. So this is our starting point. I'm going to be explaining the syntax here in a minute. I just want to take you through the rest of the files first. Index.css. It is also the baseline styling. Let's just remove all of that. And then in main TSX, this we're just going to leave as is. We don't need to touch this. This is just how React sets up its project, and it's loading the app component we have here. But we don't need to touch this. We're going to be manipulating the app, and everything outside of that we're not touching. And this is also a Vite environment folder. We don't need to touch that. In this file, we have some settings for linting. That is to do with TypeScript. And we have our git ignore file, things that it is going to be ignored when we push this project up to GitHub. We have our index.html, and this is the one that is actually referencing the script, the main TSX, which is where the app is coming through. So this one is very important. This is also where we can change the title for our website. So if we see now, it's called Vite plus React plus TS. So we want to change that to be Kobo drop, like so. Switching back, we see that it's updated. Perfect. We are also going to be updating our favicon later, which is currently also the Vite logo. Furthermore, we have our package lock and package JSON files. These are just the packages that we are using here. So we're using TypeScript. We're also going to see Tailwind later on when we install that. We have our README. We can just delete that. We have the TS config, also more configuration, and just a couple more configuration files we don't really need to care about. So now we are going to install Tailwind. If we open our browser and we go to tailwind.css.com, and we can see get this link here, get started. That takes us to the installation guide. And we are going to be using framework guides here because we are using Vite. So we're going to click that, and here is the installation that we need. So we have already done this part, and we've already done this part. So we've started our app. Now we are going to choose this one. We're going to copy that. And we are going to open our terminal again, new terminal. And we're not going to be in the terminal we're already running. Let's also just close that for the sake. And we're going to paste that here, hit enter. And then we are going to get the other part, paste that in. Now we got some config files here, Tailwind, as we can see here. So now we are on step 3. We are going to copy this content here, and we're going to paste that into our Tailwind here, inside of here, the content. We're just going to replace that. Perfect. Then we're going to open our index CSS file. And we are going to copy this part. And we're going to paste that in there. This is basically where we are linking or actually activating all the Tailwind utility classes that we're going to be using in our project. So through index.css. Now let's see if everything has been installed correctly. We're going to run npm run dev again. Then we're going to click here. And we can see that we have a new styling here. Let's now see if we go to tailwind.css, click the docs here, and then the quick search, and we're going to type color, text color. So we see that if we give something the text black or text white, that's the class we need to give them, then they're going to get this color here. Okay, let's try that. So let's just close that for now. And open our app.tsx. Inside of the h1, we're going to give it a class name, because class has a different connotation inside of JavaScript and TypeScript. So when we are creating a React app, we are switching basically class, which is traditionally used in HTML, with the form of class name, but it goes for the same thing. This is basically giving a class to this h1. And here we're going to write text white. And then let's see if that did something. It did indeed make our text white. Okay. Let's also give it a background, which is BG of black, so that we can see the text. There we go. Tailwind is working. Next up, we're going to install the extensions we're going to be using here. In our project, we are using 4 extensions. So we're going to click the extension tab here. We're going to search for ES7 plus React/Redux/React Native. And you're just going to click install here. That's going to help us when we are defining a new React app like this. We can click RFCE, hit tab, and that gives us these neat little snippets that speed up the process a bit. So that's what that does. We're going to install path IntelliSense, because when we are going to also later import, let's say import test from, and then we want to see the path here. And this is what IntelliSense does. So we can see the path that is available to us. The next one we're going to install is Prettier Code Formatter. So go ahead and install that. We're going to tweak the settings a bit later on. And the last one is Tailwind CSS IntelliSense. This is basically giving us this here. I can write background, and then I can see what my available options are, which is very, very useful instead of remembering everything or always having to go back to the documentation to see all the different variations of the classes. In order to make this extension work, we're going to go back to Prettier, and we are going to go into the settings here, extension settings. Up here in the search settings, we're going to search for format on save. So we are going to check that so that it is every time we save, it is going to format our code. And then we can also choose. We're also going to search for default format. So default formatter is currently set to Prettier. If it's set to something else, you're going to choose Prettier here. And that's that. Then we're going to go back to the, let's see, Prettier. Let's just search for that. Prettier. And here we have a config path. We're going to hit, or we're going to write .prettier rc.json. And we are also going to create that file here. So .prettier rc.json, like so. This is to enable a plugin we're going to install, which is going to be the last thing we're going to install to make basically class sorting work inside of Prettier. So when we are writing a lot of these classes one after the other, when we save, it's going to sort them. Okay, so inside of here, we're going to write curly brackets and quotes, plugins, and here we're going to say bracket prettier dash plugin dash Tailwind CSS. Okay. Then let's open the terminal again. Close the one that is running. We're going to run npm install -d prettier -plugin -tailwind CSS. And hit enter. Once that is done, we can close all these things. We can run the app again, npm run dev. And now we see I saved and we got our general code formatted. It jumped up. If I hit some space here, I hit save, it jumps back up. That's Prettier doing its thing. And we also saw that these classes got sorted. So let me put this one at the end, hit save, it got sorted again. So this is Prettier doing its work, and the Prettier code formatter for plugin for Tailwind also doing its work. So now we get suggestions, things are sorted, and everything is going to be looking neat and the same for me and you when we are coding through this app. Now we're ready to start coding and set our project structure up. In the description of this video, you're going to find a link to the source code, the GitHub repository for the finished code. You're going to click this green button and you're going to download as a zip. We are going to open up that file and we're going to go into the source folder. Here we see there is an asset folder. Now we're going to drag this assets folder over the source folder here. And we're going to replace the assets folder. And now we have all of these images that we're going to be using, all the assets, all the logos and the icons that we are going to be using for our app. Let's also go ahead and clear the class here, like so that we have an empty project that only says app. And then before we forget, let's get back to the index.html here. Now that we have our assets, we can switch this vite.svg. If we click /source/assets/logos, and then we should have a favicon, Kobojob favicon.png. and you can press Tab. That's how I'm selecting these different ones. Hit save. And then if we switch back here, we see that we have the Kobo Drop logo up top here. So now let's close the index.html. Let's first explain what is going on here. So first of all, what is even this naming convention here? We see that it's capitalized, while if you're familiar with CSS and HTML and JavaScript, we usually don't have capital letters in the file name. But when we have a component in a React app, the standard is to capitalize the first letter, or actually to use Pascal casing. So we're capitalizing the words. So app.tsx, and what is even the TSX? You might be familiar with JS and maybe even JSX. Well, here the TS stands for TypeScript, which as you can see, pretty much looks like JavaScript. And TypeScript is JavaScript with a bit of more inbuilt type safety. And I'm going to show you what that means as we will be coding the different components. But essentially, when we are having a function like this app, and let's say this app takes an argument, like let's say arg1, and then if I highlight this, we see that the parameter of arg1 implicitly has an any type. And that's how we actually write things, and that's fully functional and normal in JavaScript. And if we have another argument, arg2 and arg3, if we hover now, we see that all of these has this implicitly any type, which means that whatever we send into this app as the arguments for 1, 2, and 3, they can have any type. We can send in a string, we can send in, actually more like this, a string, we can send in a number, we can send in a Boolean, true. All of these would work and be sent into the app without any error. But what we do in TypeScript, essentially, is we write colon, and then we say argument 1 is going to be of the type string. Argument 2 is going to be of this type number. And argument 3 is going to be of the type Boolean, like so. And now, because we have defined them, we have type safety. Now we know that when we call this app, if I call that later on, I need to give it 3 arguments. Argument 1 needs to be a string, argument 2 needs to be a number, and argument 3 needs to be a Boolean. So if I say like this, hello, and then 3, let's say 30, and then false, we see that the red line goes away, because now we have fulfilled the type requirements for the app function. So that is essentially, or that's the most useful part of TypeScript. There are other parts as well, but essentially it comes down to this. That's why it's called TypeScript, because it's JavaScript with type checking. And TypeScript is a whole other topic in itself, but essentially that is what we're going to be using it for. In our React app here, we are going to be creating different components, and we're going to be knowing and defining exactly what kind of types those components variables are going to have. And here, if I now add, let's say, another number, 22, we see that I get an error. Argument of type number is not assignable to parameter of type string, and that is because argument 1 is type string. So that is essentially TypeScript, and now you are a bit familiar with it, but you'll see as we code along this app that it's not that difficult. So that is for the TS in that name. That's TypeScript file. But what's with the X? Well, when we are creating React components, we are actually using something called JSX, and it's an extended version of JavaScript. So in JavaScript, we can return this function. That's completely fine, but we wouldn't be able to. Let me just create a copy of this file, copy, and then I'm going to paste it in here, copy. So I'm going to rename this now to not TSX, but TS, like so. And see how now I can't return this H1 because we are in a JavaScript or a TypeScript file, but H1 is an HTML element. Whilst in the TSX, I am not getting that error at all. And essentially what the X does in a JSX file, in a TSX file, we are merging HTML and JavaScript. So essentially we're able to write all of our functionality and all of our template layout of our page in one file. So we're not going to need an additional HTML file for this app component or any other component here. We only have the one index HTML file. And we're not going to need additional CSS files either, because we're going to be using Tailwind and we're going to only give them class names directly in the TSX files. So isn't that cool? So that's essentially what JSX does. There's a lot to it, more to it than that. But the too long didn't read is that we're basically merging HTML and JavaScript. And we're not able to do that in traditional TypeScript and JavaScript files. So let's just delete that copy file again, like so. This is essentially a component. This is how we define a component in React. So we say function, app, and then we return what is inside of the component. And then we export this app to be used in other components. So if I now create, let's see, new file, another TSX, then I can import app from, and I can say app, like so. And then if I click RFCE, I get a little shortcut. This we don't need. And then it creates that same syntax as we had in app here. We see function another, because that's what the component is called, another.tsx. And we return just a div here, an example, and export default another. And here I am importing app, so I could use that inside of here. But let's go the other way. Let's delete that. Here we are exporting another. Let's import it inside of app. Import another. And we can call this whatever we want, This name here is we are defining that from, and then the file path needs to be accurate. So another, like so. And now instead of returning only an H1 with app here, we could return the actual another component. How do we do that? Opening bracket, and then we see that the first suggested is the component we just made. Another whatever we want, and then closing bracket, as these are self-closing elements, components. And now if I switch back to our browser, we see that we have another written. So let's inspect that. And we see here the div root, that's our HTML. And then inside of here, we have only one element, and that's a div with another. And that's exactly what we get here. So we're sending in index, in this root div, we are sending the app component. Let's see, there we are. And then inside of the app component, there's nothing apart from the another whatever we want component, which is referencing another. And here there's a div that says another. So if we say hello world here, and we switch back, we see that we have hello world. So this is the essence of React and of components in general when writing JavaScript and TypeScript, is the modular ability of these components. We can import and export these modules and these components to an infinite amount of other places. And this creates a very, very cool way of coding where we can split up different parts into different components, and we can reuse them very easily other places in our app. So now we can delete that. Let's see. We can also actually return it several times. Let's return it another time. There we go. Another whatever we want. But now we get a red line. And as we see, it gives us this error: JSX expressions must have one parent element. So we need to wrap both of these components inside of a div. So like so, div, and then let's copy paste these, put them in there, and then Prettier is doing the nice formatting for us. Now we should be able to see hello world twice in our website, and that's exactly what we do. As we see here, that's the div we got, and then hello world, hello world. But look here, we already have a div with an ID of root, and then we have another div here because we needed to wrap these two components. And this div is a bit obsolete. It doesn't do anything other than simply fulfill the requirements of everything needs to be inside of one parent component. So in React, we have a way to do that, and actually without like fluffing up our HTML too much with these empty divs, because that would create a lot of confusion later down the line when you need to inspect and you need to go through the DOM tree to see what's going on. So in React, you can actually have these empty brackets, and they're called React fragments, and essentially it just creates a parent element, something to wrap around these, but it doesn't show up in the DOM tree, as we can see here. So now it's the root element, and then we have our two under elements here, or under components. And that's very useful when creating React functions. Now let's delete these two components here. We're not going to use them. Let's delete the import. And let's also delete the file that we made. There we go. Now we are going to create our first actual component here. Let's close the asset folder. We are going to create a new folder inside of the source, and we're going to call that we're going to call that sections. And inside of the section folder, we're going to create a new file, and we are going to create our nav, because we're going to start with the nav element. So nav.tsx, like so. And to help us on our coding journey and to see what exactly we want to do, we are going to look at the finished product here. We're going to look at the finished app, and we're going to see how can we implement this into our current project. So the navigation is what we are making now. So if we can see here, that's our nav component, as we can see. And then we have different sections that we're going to get to later. But we're going to focus on the nav for now. And before we forget, we're just going to quickly open index.css, because we are going to overwrite the Tailwind styles with two things. We are going to give Tailwind, and we need to put it between components and utilities, because because CSS is cascading. So whatever we put here is going to be overwritten with this here. But this, we want to overwrite this. So we're going to target the HTML element, and we are going to set scroll behavior to smooth. That is what is going to enable us to have this smooth scrolling we see here when we click the navigation links. And the second thing we want to do is we want to target the body, and we want to give it the font family of Inter, like so. And that is just basically giving us the same font as we see here. If we inspect one of those links, we go to styles, actually computed, we scroll down, we see we have Inter as the font family. And if we go to our, well, now we don't have anything written here, but it's going to be Inter. So those are the only two things we're going to write CSS for, otherwise we're using Tailwind utility classes. So we can close that now and back to the nav. The first thing we're going to do is write RFCE, and then by default it imports React. We don't need that here. And now we have the app nav component. Let's now import that here in our app so that we can see what we're doing. Import nav from, and then it's going to be from the sections folder and the nav component. And then we're going to use that here. We're going to write nav and then closing bracket. And now if we switch back to our browser, we see that nav is correctly being displayed here. That's our nav component right there. Now back to our code. Inside of the nav component, here is where we are going to be making basically the links. So in the finished project, we see we have a logo here. Let me just zoom in a bit more. So we have a logo. We have 3 links, and in fact the logo is also a link to just the main page. The 3 other links are going to be links to the different sections we have, the main sections. And then we have install CoboJob, which is an external link to Google Play. How is this set up though? So if we inspect that, I'm going to zoom out again so we don't get the mobile view. As we can see, if I now, let's see, there we are in nav. If I go one step in, we see that we have first one div encapsulating everything. And then we have a second div that keeps the left side of the navigation menu. And then we have a link element here that keeps the right side. And then we are flexing this box here, as we can see here. As we can see in the HTML, we have a lot of Tailwind utility classes, and that's how we are creating this layout. That's how we're creating all of the layout. We see, for example, we are justifying between, so creating this space, we are giving it a flex, we're giving the whole element a height of 15 view height. That's this blue height here. We're giving it a max width. If I go further than that, we see that it cuts off here, and so does the rest of our design. It doesn't get wider than this. Inside of this left part, we are going to have separate sections, so a link for the CoboJob logo, a div that keeps these 3 links inside here, with also links to the sections. So a pretty standard nav layout. And the cool thing is, with Tailwind, it's super easy to actually tailor this based on the screen width. So as we go further down, approximately here, we are switching this whole layout. So we're hiding, we see that the div here, this div has this hidden element here. Maybe it's a bit hard to see, but it has this hidden here. And by default, it has the hidden, because by default, Tailwind works in the way that if we give it a hidden class here, it hides the element. But then we see this SM here. SM and then colon ML6. So it means that beyond small screen size, everything above small screen size is going to have a margin left of 6. Beyond small screen size, it's going to have a flex display. And this flex display kicks in and overrides this hidden one beyond the small screen size. So now we're small, and then we grow beyond small screen size, and now we're flexing. So now we're hidden, flex, hidden, flex. So that's how Tailwind works. And we have different breakpoints. We see this SM, we have LG, we have XL. So we have like different breakpoints for Tailwind, and using those breakpoints, we can quite easily and efficiently create these different styles. In the hero section, for example, we see that things are displayed vertically, and then as we grow, we are giving them a horizontal layout. And this is basically just changing the flex from column to row. So it's quite powerful and quite useful, which utility classes should be. But it can look a bit messy and definitely daunting when you've never worked with Tailwind, and it can outright look quite counterproductive. But as you get to work with them, you see that they're not that hard to work with, and in fact, there's a lot to be said for it being actually more maintainable and easier to work with than vanilla CSS. In order to make this navigation a bit smoother process for us, we're going to use a already pre-built component from headlessui.com. So if you go to headlessui.com, you have a React view here. You're going to click on the disclosure part, and this is the part where we're going to use. So we need to install this, and this is basically going to give us this nice drop-down feature here, which is something we want to save ourselves from coding manually. So copy that npm install. We're going to switch back to our VS Code, open a terminal, paste that in there. And while we are at it, we're also going to npm install at heroicons/react, because we're going to be using that for the icons for the hamburger and the X. So install that as well. There we go. Then we can close that. Then we can import the newly installed components. So disclosure is the first one. If you hit tab, it auto-completes the path. And we are gonna also import bars3 icon from heroicons/react/16/solid. And also in the same curly bracket here, we are gonna import x mark icon, like so. Now let's use our disclosure actually. So it is a bit of a specific syntax, don't worry about it, it's just how it's made. If we click this here, we can see the inner workings of it. So it has a bit of a special and untraditional syntax. So the way we're gonna do that, we're gonna target the div here, we're gonna write disclosure instead, and switch that in the closing div as well. We're gonna write as here, and then we're gonna call it nav. That's the name. And instead of text here, we are gonna write curly bracket, and then parentheses, curly bracket, and then here it's gonna be open. This is the whether or not the navigation menu panel is open or not. And then after the parentheses, we're going to write an arrow function and another parentheses here. Let's also be sure to wrap our whole disclosure here with parentheses like so. And inside of here, we are going to create those brackets, React fragments, like so. And now we are ready to create the actual HTML syntax that we need here. And the warning here is only that it is declared, but its value is never read. So first off, we're going to have a div here, and that's going to encapsulate the entire nav, all the elements. Then we are going to create another div, and that is also going to encapsulate the left side. And then here we're going to have the button link. I'm just going to write it like this for now. And then after that, we're going to have our 3 other links inside of another div. So button, let's see, another div, button link, and these are going to be 3 of those, like so. Let's see if we have the correct setup. There we go. So we have 1 button link and then a div with 3 other button links. Cool, that's the layout we want here. But as we can see, this is vertical and this is horizontal. So let's switch that with using Tailwind. So we want to flex this container here. So let's do that. Let's give it a class name. And using Tailwind, we simply say flex. And then we see that we have flexed our container, like so. We also need to flex this one to make them go horizontally as well. So class name flex. So starting to look a bit more like what we have here. Instead of divs though, we want to create an A element here. And instead of button link, we want to actually just have nothing here. And we are going to give it an href to just the home page. And then inside of this A, we are going to create an image. It has a source, and we are going to give it the source for this logo icon here. So let's see if we open our assets folder, we see we have logos, and we see we have the Kobo drop logo. Yeah, this is the Kobo drop logo as an SVG. So let's import that. Import, we need to import it because we can't directly link to it here. So Kobo drop from / assets logos and Kobo drop logo. And then let's copy that name and paste it there. And of course, we don't need the curly brackets here, like so. Now let's switch back to our browser here, and we see that we have the Kobo drop logo nicely written here. And let's give it a alt text, Kobo drop logo. Then the next links we're going to change here. Also going to change this into an A. And we are going to simply give this an href. This is going to go to the section of features. That's the first part. And it's going to say features. Next one, we're just going to do like this. Then let's copy this one 3 times. Next one is going to be partners and partners. And then reviews and reviews. Looking better. We're also going to give this a class. So class name. And we're going to give them a text color of gray. And it's going to be of 500. So you see it's a bit gray, but not too gray. And that is simply to give it a bit more of a smoother and easier color on the eyes. We are also going to give it a hover color. So the way we give them hover and active state colors is we say hover and then dash or colon, text, gray, and this is going to be slightly darker, 900. And we're also going to give it an active color. So when we've clicked it, I need to be inside of here. Active, that is when we have clicked the button and we're holding it in. Text, and that is going to be gray 400. Hit save. I have word wrap on here, so my screen cuts off the text and makes it go on a new line. You can hit Option Z on Mac or You can also go up here, view, and you see word wrap. Going back here, we see now that we have a hover effect on features, and if I click it, there's also a color change. Let's do the same class for the partners and the reviews. And then Prettier is formatting these. Now we see that all of them have the same styling. Let's now work on the actual spacing here so that everything isn't smooshed together. So then we are going to go up here to the flex container. We are going to give them a space X of 4. And if we hover over here, we see what it is doing. So that is essentially giving a bit of space between each element. And the 4 is simply, we see what it is converted to, so 16 pixels. If we put 3, we see 12 pixels. That's a very useful tool to have. We also want to line this line up. You see that the feature is a bit higher than the Kobo drop. So we want to align the items vertically. So we're going to say items center, which does that. And then we're going to give it an ML, so margin left of 4. And now it's starting to look a bit more like the finished result. We need a height here. So let's go up to our main container here, the one that only has flex. And we're going to give it a height and then dash. And then you can always give in kind of overwrite Tailwind by giving these brackets here. And then you can write in specific pixel values or other values instead of using their predefined values here. So we're going to give it a height of 15, view height of the screen we're on. And we see that that does that. We also need to make this one aligned here. So let's give this an items center as well, which solves that. And we are going to give it a max width of, let's see, 7XL, which is the biggest one. We also want to have a padding on the side in the X direction of 8. Let's see, there we go. Looking way better. So now we are getting some padding on the left side and on the right side, the green here. And actually we want to wrap this entire section here. So both the logo and these links, we want to wrap it in another div because we want to be able to space it compared to the other link on the right side compared to this one. So let's also give that div a class of flex. And we're back to our layout. Cool. Then if we scroll down, we can also close this newly made flex container. Under here, we're going to create the link on the right side. So an A, it's going to have a link of https //play.google.com. And here we are going to say install Kobo drop. We are also going to give it a blank target, which says to open this in a new tab when we click it. And we're going to give it some class names. So if we see now, we have it here. Link is working. So let's give it a background first. BG gray of, let's see, 800. Perfect. Then let's actually, since we are going to be using the mobile very soonly, the mobile view, I'm going to separate our screen like this. And I'm going to close the inspect so that we can see and not have to jump back and forth as much. So we gave it a background. Now let's give it a text color. Text of white. We are going to give it a rounded XL. This is giving us the rounded borders, like so. We're going to give it a padding in the X direction of 5. And we're going to give it a padding in the Y direction of 3. And then when we hover over it, I want to change the color. So hover, we're going to give of BG gray, let's say 900. So it's a slight color change. And for active, we want to give it a BG color, actually BG gray of 600. And then when I click it, we see the gray 600 here. Perfect. So now I'm going to zoom out this view so that we can see the actual size. It doesn't look that big, the button actually. And now we want it to be justified here. So if we go up here, we want to justify between, and that is spreading them apart. Great. Then after this a link, we are going to use our imported disclosure dot button. I'm going to close that. And here we're going to use the two bars 3 and X mark icon. So the bars are the hamburger and the X is the X mark icon. So we're going to say X mark icon. And that is a self-closing component. And we are also going to give it a bars 3 icon, like so. We're going to give them a class name of block and give them a height and a width of 6. Otherwise, they're not available. Same for the other one. Like so. So now we see them here. The disclosure button is going to have a class name as well. We're going to give it a rounded MD. It's a border radius of 0.375 rem or 6 pixels. We are going to give it a padding of 2. Let's give it a text gray of 500, making them a bit grayer. Let's give them a hover. Actually, let's give them a background. No, let's give them a hover. Background, hover, BG gray. It's going to be 700. Perfect. Let's flip the color of it as well when we hover. Hover, it's going to be text white. Nice. Okay. Obviously, we don't want to show each icon at the same time. We want to show the hamburger when the panel is closed, like we are doing here. So let's see. And then when it's open, we want to show the X, and we want to flip between them. The way we do that, and this is where the beauty of JSX comes in, Because so far we're kind of just writing HTML and classes here. But now we can write some logic here straight in the quote-unquote HTML. So we can wrap this part here. So I am going to write curly brackets, open, question mark. And that's what we had up here. That's what we were sending into the disclosure. If this is open, then we are going to send in the X mark icon, or we are going to send in, if it's closed, the bars icon. So we are saying, if this is open, question mark, send in this, and if it's closed, send in this. Now let's check it. Seems to be working. We only have the hamburger. I hit it once, it closes or opens, hit it again, and we are switching between. So instead of creating that logic ourselves, we're using this disclosure button. But obviously we also now want to hide the button here, because we see it's only on big screen sizes. We have this install Kobo job, and then when we have the hamburger, we switch between. We hide actually these parts here. So let's do that now. So if we scroll up to our button link here, we're going to give it a hidden by default. So obviously we want to bring it back as well, but we want to bring it back only above a certain point. So hidden, and then we want to give it a XL, actually SM flex. So after a certain size, it comes back. So at the SM breakpoint, and the SM is 640 pixels. And if you're wondering about the different breakpoints, then Tailwind CSS has an overview of that in its documentation. So SM is the smallest one at 640. So now that we are using that, we're going to also hide this part here, the links. So here in the parent component, we're going to write hidden to hide it. And then we're going to bring it back in the SM by writing SM in front of the flex. So let's see. There we go. Now let's also hide the hamburger button under the SM breakpoint. So it's just going to be flipped. So when we are in the SM size, we're going to say hidden. Now we are easily switching between the two. How cool is that? So as for the hamburger menu now, we want to actually open something here, because currently we are not. So after this last div here, we want to write disclosure and then dot panel and then closing. We want to give it some class properties here. And we want to give it a space Y1 and to give it a spacing between the different elements. Inside of here, we want another disclosure dot button. And this button is going to have a class name of block. Like so. It is going to have as a, so we're saying that this disclosure button is going to act as a link element. And then we can give it an href, and we're going to link to the features section. So it's basically a copy of this place. And then inside of here, we are going to write features. Okay, so now if we open the panel, you see that features is displayed. Cool, let's now copy this disclosure button 2 times. And we're going to change this to let's see, partners and reviews, partners and reviews, like so. Cool. And as we can see, the URL up top here is being updated. That's going to work later when we actually have those sections. So now if I zoom out the code a bit, we see that we have, a bit of redundancy here. We also have a bit of a redundancy regarding the A links here. In general, we have some redundant link elements here. And now we're going to extract those elements and make them a bit more neat, take a little less space, so that it's a bit easier to work with and to also reuse later on. And that's an essential part of creating React apps. We don't necessarily want to start that way, but now that we see we've written, like, quote unquote, finished the nav, at least the rough parts now, we still need a bit of styling, but we see that we need to kind of minimize it a bit. We could save on not having to write the same classes all over again and several times. Like here, these are identical. So the way we are going to refactor this code to eliminate a lot of the repetitiveness here is we are going to create another function like the nav, which we are going to import here. And the easiest thing to start with is this A link here. So let's just copy that like so. Open here. And we are going to create a new section here. Close the asset. New folder, we're going to call it common. Inside of common, we're going to create a new file. We're going to call it button link, because that's what this is. And then TSX. And then we are gonna RFCE, delete that. And then here we are gonna return. Oops, that was the wrong part. Let's copy that again. And we are gonna return a button. And now, of course, we don't have Kobo drop here. So we need to replace that with something more generic, because we want to be able to use this button and send in the source, the image. So how do we do that? Well, we have to give this React component some props, and props are just a fancy name for properties, and we just want to give them the button properties that it's going to be receiving every time that we use it. So what are those properties? And here, well, the source is actually within an image element, and the image is a child of the A element. So we're going to be sending in a child, or several. So we know that we want children to be part of here. But then we are going to, and let's also then actually remove this image here, like so. And we're going to give this the children property. And we're going to link that to this children up here, like so. And now these are linked. We still get an error that it has an any type. So we are going to create a new type here that is going to hold this child argument. So we are going to create an interface. We're going to call it button link props. And then we set this, that this interface has children and of the form of React.React node, which is basically saying that this children is of the form of basically any node child. Now we can use this newly made interface as the type for this children. So button link props, and that solves our issue. As we can see, we also have an href, and we are also going to give that various if you go back to the nav, we see that the href here is just a hashtag. Here it's features, here it's partners. So we want to be able to give it different hrefs. So we're also going to give it href here. And we are going to reference that here, href. But of course, href does not exist on type button link props. So we have to add it. So href, and that's going to be of the type of string, like so. What more are we lacking here? Well, we need, let's see, we need class name. So we need to also be able to add a class name. Class name, which is going to have class name here. We also need to add that to our button link props, and that is also going to be of the form of string, type of string. If we go back to our nav, we also see that we are using, let's see, here we are using the target blank. So we also need the target, but we're not using it everywhere, and we're not using class name either everywhere. We're lacking that here. So these need to be optional, and we do that by adding a question mark after the definition inside of the interface. And same with children, we want to be able to not pass any children, and we want to pass a target, optional target, which is also going to be a string. So here, target, and we are going to add that here, target is equal to target. Now we're ready to actually use this button link in our nav. So let's import it here. Have we exported it? We need to export it first. Export, no, we have in the bottom here. Correct, okay. So then we can import it in our nav, import button link from common button link. Now let's see if we can switch this A element here, which holds the Kobo Drop logo, with the button link component. So let's create new button link under here. And we see we get an error because we, let's see, because we are missing in type href. Okay, so let's give an href. It's basically asking for all of these types that we had just defined. So href is going to be, and then it's not giving us an error because the rest of the interface is optional. We are going to give it children, and we're going to give a curly brackets to it, and inside of here we are going to create an image like so, and inside of the image, also that is a self-closing attribute like so. Inside of here, the image is going to have a source. The source is going to be Kobo Drop. And then we are going to have an alt text, and that is going to be Kobo Drop logo. And there we see we have another duplicate. So now we can delete the first one. And you might be thinking, well, that was a lot of work for not much less code. But this was the easiest part and the one that we kind of didn't have to replace. But now we can use this button link for all the other ones as well. And instead of writing 4 or 3 A links here in a row, we can iterate over them. So let's see. Put some space here. Also, let's get them back like so. So we see them up top here, right after we create the function nav. We are going to create a new constant.
And this constant is going to be called nav links, and it is going to hold all of the nav links, all the info that we are repeating here 3 times. So what's the first thing? Well, it's going to be the first one, href. What is the href for the first one? Features. Okay, let's take that, paste that in there. Also, let's put strings around it. And then the next part is going to be children, not capitals, children. And that is going to be features. And that is essentially what we're writing here. Then we are going to copy this 3 times. 1 and 2, separate that with a comma. And then we're going to do the same for partners. Partners. Reviews. Reviews, like so. We are also going to take out the class names here. If I hover over it like so, you see that it selects 3 times because they're identical. So that's another thing that is great to actually take out. So we're going to create a new constant for that. Const text link classes equal to, and we're just going to say that's equal to that string. Okay. Now let's remove these. Let's just cut them out. And then we're going to, instead, we see that they disappeared up here. Instead of that, we are going to call upon the nav link here. Nav links. We're going to map over it using the map function. Then we are going to take the link, each individual link, and we're going to take the index that is inbuilt for each element in the map. And we are going to run a piece of code. And for every link, we are going to create a button link. And for every button link, we're going to give it a key, because everything in React, when we are iterating over elements, we need to give each element a unique key. It's going to be the index that we get from the map function. We are going to give it an href that is going to be equal to each link, which is this. And we're going to go into the href property. So link href. Then we're going to go into the children. We're going to give that each link and children, which we already made. And starting to see better. Look, they are back. They're missing the class though, so let's add the class. Class name equal to text link classes. And there we go. And now we have the exact same thing, but with way less code. And now this is completely reusable. And we will be using it throughout the project. This we don't need. I'm going to zoom out a bit easier to see. Hopefully it's still very visible for you. Now we can do the same with the Google Play here. So let's just copy this button link. We don't need an index here or key, but the href we are gonna give like this. We're gonna give it a target of blank. We are gonna give it a class name. And we're just gonna copy this whole thing. Paste it in there. And the children is going to be like so. Install CoboDrop. And then we can get rid of this one. And now we have successfully refactored all these A-links to use our newly created button link component. So now the next thing we want to do, it's looking pretty good on small. We want to give it a bit of space here though. So let's go into the panel section here. Let us also iterate over these guys here instead of repeating them. So we're just going to copy the code here. Nav link. And instead of button link, we're going to give it a disclosure button. We're going to copy its attributes here into it like this. Actually, inside of here. And for the child, we're going to say link dot children, like so. We don't need the index, so we do need the index. Let's see. Let me give that a key of index, like so. And then we can remove these guys. Again, way simpler code, or well, way smaller code without repetition. The beauty of React. Let's now give this disclosure panel some classes here. We want to give it a space. Let's see, y of 1. And we want to give it a px of 4, give it padding, and we want to hide it above the small section. So now it's hidden. Perfect. So let's scroll up to the button link here we're iterating over. If we make our website a bit bigger, we can actually switch between them. So we see the whole thing. We need to center this. As we can see here, it is currently just sitting on the left side, so we want it to be in the center. So we're going to go to the top here. We are going to give it an XLM auto. And as well, on the LG size, we're going to give it a bit more pixels on the each side. We're going to give it a bit more padding. So there we go. Let's switch back. And now we see, with the use of the M auto, we are now having automatic margins on each side. And we are also increasing, if you watch here, we are increasing the padding on each side as we go up a size. Or decreasing it as we go down. Depends on how you look at it. Great. Starting to look better. We also want to give this a bit more space here to breathe, as we can see on the finished site when we are going up in size. So we're going to give it an SM ML6, margin left. We're going to give it an LG size, margin left 8. And we're going to give it an LG space in the X direction of 8. And that's making it look quite similar, I would say. Yeah, cool. Slightly off because here we have a scroll bar in the finished one. That's looking pretty good. And then as we go down, it changes a bit, gives a bit more space, and then it disappears into a hamburger menu, and we have the menu here. Perfect. Our nav menu is done. So now we can close the nav, and everything sits inside of here. It's called through the app. Now let's move on to create the hero section. So we're going to call it hero.tsx. In the sections folder, we're going to rfce, create the boilerplate like so, and we are going to import it here. You don't really need to create you don't need to really write the import as long as you start writing the component here like so. And then let's switch to the desktop. Let's switch to the browser, and we see that the hero is written here. So we have now, let's see, the nav and the hero. Perfect. For the hero section, let's check out actually what we're gonna do. On the left side here, we have our intro text together with some buttons linking to the App Store and Google Play. In the middle, we have an image of our app, and on the right side, we have our user who is happily using CoboDrop. So how do we make this happen? Well, we're going to use Flexbox, and then we're going to position this image absolute to kind of make it be free of its other elements. But then otherwise, this section here is going to be on the left side of the Flexbox, and this image is going to be on the right. And then this mobile is going to be free from both of them, be absolutely positioned. So let's jump back into our code and do exactly that. So first off, we don't want to have a div here. We want to actually have a section. And then instead of the hero text, we are of course going to create a div. And inside of this div, we are going to have our left part. So this is going to be the left section with the buttons and the text. So number one we're going to make is an h1. Start spending the smart way. And then under there, we're going to have a paragraph. And I'm just going to copy paste that from the finished website. Feel free to do the same at cobodrop.netlify.app. So we're just going to copy paste this to save us a bit of typing. And paste. And then let's see what we have. Okay, cool. It's showing up correctly. And how does it look on the finished one on mobile? Perfect. So we just have, we're not showing the mobile, we're not showing the image of the user, or nor the buttons here when we get proper small. Okay, perfect. Now let's add one button. So it's going to be an A element. We are going to have a href here. That is going to be https://www.apple.com/app store. And then here, inside of the A, we are going to have an image. It's going to have a source. And there we are going to link to, let's see, I'm going to link to the App Store logo. So we need to import that. Import app, or actually like Apple logo from // assets logos and App Store SVG. So Apple logo, we're going to give this a class name of W5 and then alt text of Apple Store or Apple logo. Then we're going to give this a link element, a class or a couple of classes. Class name. We're going to give it a flex. I'm going to give it a gap of 3 because we're going to have some gap between the different text and the image. If we go back to the finished here, these have a little gap in between them, the elements. And then we're also going to give it a rounded LG shape to round out the borders. We're going to give it a background zinc of 900. I'm going to give it a px of 4 and a py of 3. Furthermore, we're going to make the text white, and we're going to give it a hover effect, change the background color to zinc 950, slightly darker. And we're also going to give it an active color of BG zinc 800. There we go. Let's switch back to our site. Here we see we have working logo. It's stretching now because it's filling the rest of the space. So let's fix that. Let's wrap that div like so. Put the A in there and give this div a class empty margin top of 10. Cool. We're gonna give it a justify center. We're gonna space in the X2 between the first button and the second button that we're gonna add in here. And when we are over the small size, we're gonna flex. Otherwise, we're gonna have it hidden. And then MD justify normal, like so, after the medium size. Let's see what we have. Perfect. We still don't have any text here, that's why it looks weird. So now under the image, we are gonna give a paragraph. And here we are gonna have, what did we write? Download on the App Store. Okay. So the first one is going to be download on the, and then another paragraph, App Store. And then we have that. Cool. Now we need to flex that and like style that a bit. So let's wrap those in a div. And copy all of that and put them inside a div. Can remove that. And also let's give the first paragraph here a bit of a smaller text with the class name of text XS. And then let's go back. We have our app button. Similar to this one. If I click it, it turns a bit brighter. Okay, and now you might be starting to wonder, are we going to refactor this as well? Well, yes, you are correct, because we have one button, 2 buttons, and then we scroll down, 3 buttons, 4 buttons, 5 buttons, and 6 buttons that are all similar enough that we can create this into its own component. So that's what we're going to do now before we continue, so that we don't have to like write all of this in a very, very similar way over and over again. So let's create a new common file. We're going to call it StoreLink, capital L, .tsx, rfce, like so. We're going to copy that out. StoreLink. In this StoreLink, we're going to be returning a link, of course. Inside of here, let's actually just copy this whole thing. We can remove the Apple logo for now. So it's going to have the same shape as we just made, but it's going to be very generalized. So instead of href here directly, we are going to have href, and instead of class name, of course, we are also going to have a generalized version so that we can actually send in the class name, like so. Same with source. We're going to send in a logo here. The alt text we're going to wait a bit with. Let's just leave it blank for now. And the class name is going to stay width of 5. This is going to stay the same, but here we are going to send in upper text. And then here we're going to send in lower text. This might be looking familiar because it is very similar to the button link props here and the button link. It's just missing a couple of elements. So we're going to use this same button link props because we don't have to actually make it in every component. We can also just export it here. So now if I go back to the StoreLink, I can import button link props here, and I can say that this StoreLink is going to have an href, it's going to have a class name, target, logo, upper text, and lower text, without the capital L and capital U, like so. Save, and we get an error here because we don't have any type on these. So we need to type that to the button link props, and then we get an error here because these are never actually declared in the button link props, so we have to add them. So we're just going to add them as optional variables here. String, upper text, string, and lower text, string. And then back in our StoreLink, we can now, also we misspelled lower text, like so, correct that, upper text, lower text, great. Logo we're using. We're also going to add a target here, and we are going to set that to target. This is where we want to redirect to. And for the alt text, we are going to press backticks, $, curly brackets, and now we can mix variables and text like so. So now if we go back to our hero and we change this to use our StoreLink, let's try that. StoreLink, and we import that at the top. We are missing the href. Well, here the href is, let's see, this one. Then we're going to give it an upper text, and that is going to be download on the. We're going to give it a lower text, app store. We are going to give it a logo. That is going to be the Apple logo. We are going to give it a target of underscore blank. And last but not least, we're going to give it a class name, and we're just going to copy this in there. And now we can remove this A. And now we have a reusable store link that we can use for the Google Play link as well. So let's check it out. It looks the same. Perfect. Now if we just copy it, if you hold Shift Option down on Mac, I think it's the same on Windows, then you can see that we have two now. And we just need to tweak a couple of the things. So what are we writing for the Google Play? Get it on Google Play. Get it on Google Play. Perfect. And instead of the Apple logo, we are gonna import Google Play from /assets/logos/Google Play SVG. And then we're just going to change that to Google Play. And we're of course also going to change this link here to play.google.com. If we now switch back to the browser, we see that we have both the buttons and they are redirecting correctly. Oops. We have an issue with our, let's see, without the www, like so. Let's try again, and it works. Perfect. But we're not going to stop there because we are going to, of course, be using this as a duo for several places in our app here, and in the footer. And we want to slightly change them here in the footer, but they're always a pair. So we can do better than this. So we can refactor this one more step. So we're going to create a new common component here. We're going to call it StoreLinks.tsx. And then we're going to go into the hero here. We're going to copy the import statements here, paste them here. We're going to RFCE, take away the React part, and we're going to go back to the hero section, and we are going to cut out these two links, including the div that surrounds them, like so. We're going to paste them into the StoreLinks, like so. And now we can simply import, instead of StoreLink, we can import StoreLinks from common StoreLinks. And now we add StoreLinks here, like so. And back to our browser, we see that we have the same result. So that's already looking way cleaner. And now we have refactored the code to give us basically any logo and any text we want for our button. Then we're going to move on to add the image of our app and user. Under this div, we're going to add another div. We're going to add an image inside of there. And under the other, and also another image, actually, like so, 2 images. And let's import those. So we're going to import phone from ..assets, and then we're going to do, let's see, app frame, and import hero image from ..assets/hero, like so. We also don't need these two first here because we have them inbuilt here. So the source for the first image is going to be phone, and the source for the second image is going to be hero image, and the alt for the first one is going to be Kobo drop app frame. Second image is going to be a woman happily using Kobo drop. Let's check it out. So here we have our very big app frame and our image. Of course, we're going to style this in a second. So now we have all the elements we need. Let's start from the top and actually give our section a bit of padding. Actually, class name, we need margin top of 4 to give us a little space from the nav. We want to flex this to make that nice horizontal layout that we see here. We are going to give it an H fit for the height. We're going to give it a max width of 7XL. We're going to flex it in the column, so not horizontally but vertically by default on the mobile view. We're going to be positioning the phone in an absolute way, so we need to give this section a relative class. We're going to center the items. We're going to give a gap of 10 between all the items. We're going to give a padding in the x direction of 8. We're going to give a gap of 16 when we are above the small. When we are above the medium, we are going to give a margin in the y direction of 0. And over medium, we want to also give the height of, let's see, 85 view height, like so. And then empty flex row when we are above the empty. And again, medium width, we're going to give it a gap of 0. When we're getting to the large, we want to give it a px of 12. And XL, we want to give it an M of auto. Also a, let's see, gap of 0. And we also want to give it an overflow hidden. Let's save and see what we have. Looking better. We see that we have the margins on the outer sides, and it's turning into a side-by-side flex, and one after the other vertically on a small screen. Perfect. Let's make the screen visible here. This first div, we are going to give a class name in the small width of full. And the medium, it's going to be width of 3/6. Then the H1, you're going to give a class name. We are going to give it a text center. We're going to give it MX auto. We're going to give it a margin bottom of 8. And we're going to give it a width of 12 characters. Like so, to keep it from flexing and keeping it the same shape. We're going to give it a text of 4XL in size. We're going to make the font semi-bold. We're going to give it a text gray color of 800. And above the small size, we're going to give it a text of 5XL. And above the medium size, we're going to give it a MX 0. And above the medium, we're going to give it a text left, like so. Text left, text center, text left, text center. Perfect. As for the paragraph, I'm going to give it a class name as well of M margin auto. We're going to give that a width of 34 characters. Same reasoning. We're going to text center. Oops, text center. I'm going to give it a text gray of 800 as well. Actually, this one is going to be 500. And MD margin 0 and MD text left. So quite similar classes. Then for the container that is holding these two images, we're going to give it a class name, MD, width of 3/6, XL, MB 12, and XL overflow hidden. Getting there. Then for this image, the first one, I'm going to give it a class name of right 0, M auto, V72, W72. Above XL, it's going to be absolute. And above XL, it's going to have a left of 6, as well as a right of 0. And ML 32 and XL width of 80. Okay, starting to get there. The second image is going to have a class name of hidden by default and rounded to X and XL flex. So let's see what we have here. We are not positioning the phone correctly. Something is going wrong, which we'll fix, but otherwise we are getting quite close. The rest seems to be accurate. On closer inspection, I see that we're using the wrong image. This is the image we're supposed to use, and this one is cut off by default, so that's why it's looking the way it is. So let's go to our phone and change that to mockup SVG. There we go. And now it looks pretty similar. And we still are lacking some styling here. To make it center aligned, let's fix that as well. That is probably down here in the classes for the actual image. So let's see, we have right. Here's the spelling mistake. Instead of XL margin left, it is supposed to be margin top. And then we see that we have our layout. Perfect. Adapting to the length of the page. Awesome. Then we are done with our hero section. Now we can move on to our features section. Here, as we can see, we have some text, which we are going to style in a similar way as we did in the hero. And then we're going to be creating cards, one card for each of these parts here, 4 cards in total. And we're going to be creating a component for each card, which you might be getting used to by now. So these are going to be quite repetitive as well. So perfect candidates to create a component. And instead of writing the HTML first, we're going to go straight into writing the component. So let's create our features section. Features.tsx, RFCE, and that gives us our boilerplate. So the feature section, we are going to basically be creating a card for each of these elements, and we're going to be having quite similar classes and styling for each of them, but essentially it's going to be 4 cards displaying quite similar text. So let's go back to our code and create a new file in our sections. It is going to be features.tsx and rfce, and we remove the React import like so. For the features component, we also want to go in the app and also import it and add it to our app like so. Let's see. There we go, features down below. Now we want to change this div to a section. And then this section is going to have an ID of features. And now when we click the features in our link, it goes to features. Well, it's not really taking a lot of space yet, but we see that it scrolls down. It is going to have a class name of flex and a max width of 7XL, as well as flex column layout by default, gap 10 by default, px 10, pt 10, lg, px 12, and on extra large screen sizes we're going to have margin auto, and extra large screen sizes we're going to have padding top 20. Okay, looking good. And then inside of here, we're going to have an article. That's going to be our text. We're going to have an H2 here saying make every penny count. And under the H2, we're going to have a paragraph. And let's just go copy that from the finished site. Paste that in there. And after the, let's see, copy that here. And paste it in there. And after by, we're going to add a break so that these are on each line. And for the article, we're going to give a class of margin auto, width of 30 characters, text center, text gray 500, and on medium screens and up, margin 0, and on medium screens and up, width full. And then for the H2, we're going to give a class margin bottom of 4, text 4XL, font semi-bold, and text gray of 800. And let's check it out. Perfect. Awesome. Then we are ready to create another article. This article is going to have a div, and inside of that div, another div. And inside of here, we're going to have an H2 saying pay with Kobo drop, quick, simple, and easy. And under the H2, we're going to have a paragraph. And if we go to the finished one, we are going to copy this and paste it there. So now we're creating this part here. If we inspect, see the H2, that's the div, surrounded by another div that has both of these elements, and surrounded in the larger article element here that has both of these two cards. So back in our code, this article has a class name of flex and width of full and flex column by default, as well as gap 8 by default and overflow hidden by default to hide that picture. XL as well. It's going to have a height of 96. Otherwise, it's going to get too big. And XL is also going to have a flex of row, like so. The div under is going to have a class name of flex and flex. Flex column. Also rounded to XL. It's also going to have a background of sky 100. Padding X direction 4. And above small screen sizes, padding X direction 0. MD, it's going to have a flex row. MD is also going to have a gap of 8. And above XL, it's going to have a width of 2/3. Now the width of 2/3 is because we see here, it takes 2/3 of the width here, and then the other card is going to take 1/3 and reversed here. The div under there is going to have a class name as well of mt10, flex, and flex column. We're also going to justify the content to the center, give it a gap of 4 between, and text center. And above small, we're going to give it an mx10, and above medium, we're going to give it an mx of 0. Medium also gets margin left of 10, and it also gets a width of 1/2, as well as a text left. Let's see how it's looking. Good. Okay. Now for the H2, give it a class name of margin auto, text center, text 3XL for the size, and the font can be semi-bold, text gray of 800, and for the small and up, width 18, characters, and MD margin 0, MD text left, like so. As for the paragraph, we give it a class name of mauto as well, text center, text gray 500, above small, width of 34 characters, and above MD, margin 0, as well as text left. And let's check it out. Perfect. So now we just need the image here. So first let's import that image. Import, we're going to call it app frame from /assets appframe.png. Then we're going to go down here. Under the first div, we are going to create another div. And inside of there, there's going to be an image with a source to the app frame. And the alt is just going to say Kobo drop app frame. Let's check it out. Perfect. Now let's give the surrounding div a class. mauto, mtop, 10, max width of 72, MD of MX10, MD of width 1.5, and for large screen sizes, margin in the X direction of 0. And back in our app, we see that it is working perfectly, and we are using all the Tailwind different breakpoints to divide the content. So on the large screen, we have it taking the 2/3, leaving 1/3 for the rest. As we get a bit smaller on the tablet or a small desktop, we see that we have broken it into a row layout or a column layout, when this part here is going to go under. And then as we get small enough, we break this down as well into a column, so allowing us to fit everything into one screen across the sizes. Perfect. That's how we're going to do all of the cards. Now under this last div, we're going to create another div. This is going to be the other card. We're going to have a class name of flex and flex column, justify center, gap 4, rounded to XL. Background is going to be indigo 100. The padding is going to be 10, and for the XL size, width is going to be 1/3. Let's see. Looking good. Okay. And then inside of this div, we're going to have another div with a class name of width fit, rounded full. This is the icon we have there. Background indigo a bit darker, 200, and padding of 4. Inside of that div, we're going to have an image with a source that's going to be called a shield check, and the alt is going to be empty. So we're going to import the shield check from /assets logos, actually icons, and then it's going to be the check icon, like so. Let's go back and see. There we go, there we have it. Then under the icon, we're going to have an H2 saying bank level security. And under here, we're going to have a paragraph. And let's go take that from the finished app and paste it in there. We're going to give this paragraph a class name of text gray 500, and the H2 a class name of text XL, actually 3XL font, semi-bold, and text gray of 800. And if we go to the finished, or the R's, it's looking good. Perfect. And if we expand it, it takes 1/3. As we go down, it goes on a column, and then it fits. Perfect. Now we can collapse this whole article. Let's copy it down. And as we can see, we now have identical copy. Now we're just going to flip these widths. So for the second article, we're going to go in here, and we are just going to copy the first one, or cut it, and paste it below the second one. And now we have similar layout, but flipped. Okay. Now to tweak these so they actually look like the finished one, we need to change the colors, the icon, and the text, of course, and the image down here. So for this new article we just copied, it's going to be similar, flex, with full, flex column, gap 8. Overflow we're not going to need here though, like so. And otherwise everything stays the same. Then this one, we're just going to change the background. It's going to be orange 100. And the same for the icon here. It's going to be orange instead of indigo. We're also going to have a new image here called coins. So let's import that. Import coins from / assets icons coins. Otherwise, we're going to tweak the text. So cost reduction. And let's copy the last one. Paste that there. The classes stay the same. And then this one we're going to tweak a bit. We're going to add a gap of 8. We are going to add also an overflow hidden here. Rounded to XL. Background sky 100 is the same. PX, same. And then the rest is the same. In the next one, we are just going to add MD MT 0. And then the width is 1/2, that's correct. And the text is left, that's correct. Then this one stays the same, and the text we're going to change. Send, receive, and exchange money. Then we're going to go to the finished one, copy that text, paste it in there, and we are going to go and change this app frame. We are going to import some frames from / assets and frames.png. And we're going to change that there, frames. And we're going to say frame displaying logos of various payment solutions. Okay. We're going to tweak the class here. Max auto. And we're also going to add a max width of 96. We're going to remove this LG. And instead we're going to add MD MT 36. Like so. And let's see what we have. There we go. So now if we click features, we have our finished features here. Perfect. And if we make it smaller, it is looking good across the different widths. Perfect. Now we're ready to move on to the partner section, where we are again going to create components that are going to help us avoid a lot of redundant and repetitive code here. So back to our code. Let's close our features and create a new section, partners.tsx. And let's RFCE it. So we are exporting, and let's import it into our app. Partners, like so. And let's see if everything looks correct. There we go. Partners text down below. So inside of our partners section, and we're going to turn this into a section like so. There we go. We are going to have an article. Oops. Article like so. And here we're going to have an H2. I'm going to say transact seamlessly with ... And then under here, it's going to be a paragraph. And let's go steal that from the finished product here. Put that in there. And we're going to have a breakpoint after 200. The section is going to have an ID so that we can get to it with our button click. Partners, like so. It's going to have a class name of margin top 20 to give it a space between the partners section and the section above. I'm going to give it a flex and flex column. And background gray 50, just to give it a slightly different color. And padding in Y direction 20. Let's see what we have. Cool. Looking good. Then the article is going to have a class name, margin bottom of 10 and width full, and px of 8, text center, and lg px 12. Then the h2 class name mb4 text for Excel, and the font is going to be semi-bold with a gray 800 color. Cool. Then we're going to create a new article under here. Here we're going to return 3 images. One image first. Let's import the images we need here. So import Klarna. From these are all the partner logos. From assets, LogoWall, Klarna. Import Stripe. From, let's just copy that. And then it's going to be Stripe. Copy it down, Control Option down, and then PayPal from PayPal. So we're going to start with those 3 because we see in the finished one here, if I click Inspect, we see that, let's see, Inspect there. We see that one article has 3 of these logos inside of it. Then we have another article, and then we have a section with 2 more articles. We've done it this way so that we can accurately display all of them side by side like this. But then, as we get on a smaller screen size, we can also put them one over the other. Like so. Okay. So let's then create our first article. It's going to have the image of Klarna. And Klarna logo. We're going to copy that down, Control Option down. Next one is Stripe. Stripe like this. And we're going to write Stripe logo, and then PayPal. I wrote it wrong. So PayPal, like so. Let's check out what we have. Okay, we have two huge logos. That's good. We haven't styled them yet, so let's do that. Give them class name, MB8. We're going to flex them so they're side by side. We're going to justify them to the center. We're going to give them a gap of 8 between each other, and we're going to say text center. Okay, cool. Now we are going to wrap this article inside of a div. So let's put it in there. And we are going to give this div a class of XL flex and XL justify center. We're also going to give each image class name of width 20 and MD width 36. Let's copy that and paste that for each image. And there we go. Okay, so this is highly reusable. So we are actually going to extract this and make this into a separate component. So let's open our common folder, new file. This is going to be LogoWall.tsx. And here we're just going to copy the whole article here. We're going to return that in the LogoWall. And then here, instead of saying Klarna directly, we are going to say source 1, src2, src3, and the same here. Alt 1 and Alt 2 and Alt 3. Then LogoWall is going to take those as props, src1, src2, src3. Same with Alt 1, Alt 2, and Alt 3. And then we need to define those, because now they can have an any type. So we're going to create a new interface here. Interface LogoWall props. And those are going to have that order source1, string, and then we're just going to copy those source 2 and source 3, and we are going to give this LogoWall props. And here we're going to have Alt 1, 3, and 2. Okay, now if we export this, we have exported it down here, and we import it up top, import LogoWall. Now we can add a LogoWall here, and we can give it the source of Klarna 1, source 2 of Stripe, source 3 of PayPal, Alt 1, of the Klarna logo. Alt 2 is going to be the Stripe logo, all 3 is going to be the PayPal logo. Okay, let's see. And it's identical. Perfect. And if I inspect it, we also have the alt here. So now I can delete the hard-coded one. And now we can make copies of this. So we need another one here in this div, like so. And then we need to copy the whole outer div, like so. Let's see what we have. Looking good. So obviously we need to change the logos, but they are having this correct and same form. So now we just need to import the rest. So 1, 2, 3, starting with the 4th one. That is going to be bed C from bed C. Then we're going to have a master card from MasterCard. We're going to have MTN from MTN. We're going to have Airtel from Airtel. Payoneer from Payoneer. Visa from Visa. Mobile from Mobile. Ikea from Ikea. It's not IKEA, something else. And DSTV from DSTV. Okay, now we can use those. So I'm going to show you a useful tip. If you double click on the Klarna here in the second one, and you hit Command D, you can target the next one. And here we are going to say bed C, and do the same thing, Command D, Stripe, MasterCard. Same here, MTN. That saves us some typing. Moving on to the other div, Airtel, Payoneer, and Visa, Mobile, Ikea, DSTV. And now we see that we have all our logos neatly displayed. And that is it for our partners section. Next up, we're going to move to the review section. We're going to implement this quite similar as we have up top in the hero text. And then we're going to have a carousel here where we're going to implement carousel with different reviews, and we can put as many as we want. So now we are going to create a new section. We're going to call that reviews.tsx RFCE, and let's add that to our app. Review views, like so. And then inside of the reviews, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new constant. And this constant is going to be called slides, and it's going to hold all the slide info that we want. So it's going to be an array with objects. So the first key is going to be source, and that is going to be the source to our picture. Now you can add whichever source you want here. But for the sake of this video, we're going to keep it to the same as in the deployed website. So we have that here. So we're just going to go and copy the first image here, copy image address, and we're going to paste that in here. We are also going to wrap that image address in brackets, like so. Then we're going to have a text here. And let's grab that as well. The finished one. Be sure to wrap that as well. This time in single quotes, because we have double quotes inside of them again. And then the name is going to be Haruka Sato. Again, let's wrap that. And country is going to be Japan. Now let's copy this 2 times. Then the next text, let's see, the next image address, we're going to copy that and overwrite it here. And let's also get the text here and overwrite it here. And then let's get the last person, copy image address. Overwrite it there. And the last text. And put it there. The second person is called Elena Rodriguez. And she is from Spain. And then we have Thomas Morgan from USA. Okay, cool. We need to add our reviews. We have added, yeah, we're not rendering anything. Now we're gonna go down here. We are gonna change this div to a section. Inside of here, we're going to return an article. This article is going to have an H2. Join other thousands of people growing with Kobo drop. Great, cool. Then we are going to have a store link here that we're going to be able to reuse from earlier. How cool is that? So let's see what we have. Awesome. That's the power of having components. You can just use it wherever you want. Then this section is going to have an ID of reviews, so we can click to it. It's going to have a class of flex and max width of 7XL, flex column, items, center, justify between PX8, PY20, LG M auto, LG flex row, and LG PX12. Then the article is also going to have a class, MB10 flex and flex column, items center, justify center, LG width 1.5, and LG items start. As for the H2, we are going to give it a class name, MB4, max width of 16 characters, so it doesn't lose its shape. We're going to text center, and text 4XL, 4XL, like so. Also gonna make it semi-bold and give it the color of text gray, 800. In a large screen, it's gonna have a width of full and also a text of left. Let's see what we have. Looking good on the small screen, and on the big screen, perfect. Links are working, cool. So now let's create that carousel and put it here. So we are going to create a new component. So let's open that. And it's going to be in our common. New file, carousel.tsx, RFCE, like so. And let's see if we can add that here. After the store links, actually after the article, we're going to add a carousel, like so. And let's check out finished. Perfect. So now we can focus on inside of the carousel. So we are going to be returning a div. And inside of here, there's going to be another div. And inside of here, we are going to be returning slides. And we are going to be mapping over them. Map over each slide and take its index as well. And then we're going to return a div. And this is going to have a key of the index of each slide. Okay, cool. And then the carousel is, of course, taking a slide, slides, and then that is going to have the carousel props as a definition. So now we need to make that. So interface carousel props is slides, and it's going to be one slide. And one slide is an array, because as we see here, if we go back to our reviews here, that's one slides. Okay. And one slide we need to define as well. Interface slide. Well, it's going to look exactly like this. Source, text, name, country. Source, string, text, string, name, string, country, string. Okay, cool. And for now, let's just check that everything works. So we're going to take a slide and say name. Okay. And then in our reviews, we need to give this carousel now a slide. So slides are equal to slides. Let's check what we have. Perfect. We are iterating over each slide and printing the name. So back to the carousel. This div is going to have a class name of relative. It's going to have a height of 400 px. It's going to have a max width of 400 px. It's going to have an overflow of hidden. And it's going to have a rounded 2x. Then the second div is going to have a class name, flex, and transition. It's going to have a duration. This is a transition for the actual slideshow. 300, and it's going to ease in, and it's actually just going to ease out. Like so. And then, in order to make this transition work, we also need to give it a style attribute here. And inside of that, we are going to add a transform. And inside of here, with backticks, we are going to say translate in the X direction, and then parentheses, minus $, curly brackets, current, for current slide, times 100%, like so. And closing parentheses. So current we haven't defined. That is the current slide. So we need to copy that and define that as a variable. So let, and then current. And here we are using destructuring. Set current. And that is going to use state hook, which is a typical React way to keep track of different states for different variables. So we need to also import use state from React, like so. Then we are gonna create a function for clicking the previous slide. If the current slide is equal to 0, then we want to set current slides length -1, else set current plus 1. Actually, -1. Then we're going to copy that to the next slide. If current is equals to slides dot length -1, then we're going to set current to 0, back to the original first slide, or we're going to set current to +1. So now we're ready to use these functions inside of our carousel. So now instead of having the slide name here, we're going to remove that. We are going to give it an image. The source is going to be slide.source, and the alt is going to be backticks slide show image $, and index. This image is also going to have a class name of minimum height of 400 px, as well as object cover to fill the whole box. As well, the div outside of the image also has a class of relative h full minimum height fit with full flex and actually flex shrink 0. Okay, let's see what we're working with. Okay, cool. We have an image. Let's see if we can now add some buttons to it. So before the last div, let's add an image. It is going to have a source. Let's leave that for now. We are going to add an on-click event, and we are going to call previous slide. I'm going to give it a class name of absolute bottom 5 and right 5. Actually, right 16. Height 7. Width 7. Rounded full. Border P1. And we're going to give it a hover of cursor pointer. The alt is going to be previous slide button. And the source we're going to import. So we're going to import arrow back from / assets icons arrow back SVG. And now let's use that here. Arrow back. And let's see. Here we go. Arrow back. And we see that we are switching between our different images. Perfect. Now let's copy this image. Once down. Call the next slide instead. And let's import another image. Arrow forward from / assets icons arrow forward. Arrow forward and next. And the only thing in the class here is we are going to change the right to 5. And now if we see, we have 2 arrows, one to go forward, one to go back. And if we go past the last slide, we go back to the first slide. Or if we go back from the first slide, we go to the last slide. Perfect. We are still missing the text here and the background here. So let's go and make that. So after this image, we are going to create another div. Inside of here, we're going to have a paragraph. We're going to say slide.text inside of here. Under the paragraph, we're going to have a div. Inside of here, we're going to have an h1. And inside of here, it's going to be slide.name. After the h1, we're going to have another div. And here we're going to have images. And these are going to have, let's see, we need to import that. The stars, star from / assets icons star. So here, star, we're going to leave the alt blank. And the class name is going to be height 5, width 5. But let's copy this 4 times, so we have a total of 5. And then under the second div here, we're going to have an h2. And this is going to have the slide.country. So the first div here is going to have a class of absolute, left 0, top 44, flex, and we are going to have height of 96, width of full flex column, gap 2, BG gray, let's see, 800 divided by 0.6 for transparency, and P4, text, white, and on LG screens, a gap of 4. That's looking better. Cool. Now for the div under the paragraph here, I'm going to give it a class name of flex and justify between. And in the H1, the class is going to be text, XL, and the font is going to be semi, bold, and the div holding all the stars is going to have hidden by default, and on large it's going to be flex. And there we go. We have our carousel ready to go. Next up, we are going to be creating our footer. So now it should be looking good across screens. And it looks like it is. And our links are working. Reviews. This one is going to partners, and this one is going not to reviews. Let's see. Let's see if it changes if we reload. Reviews. There we go. Partners, features. Perfect. So now we can create a new section called footer.tsx, RFCE in here, and then we're going to import that into our app footer, like so, and let's check that out. There we go, our footer. In our footer component, we are going to be returning a section. Inside of that section, we're going to return a div, within another div, within another div, and then an image. And this image is going to have a class name of MB4 and width of 36. Width of 36 MB4. There we go. The source is going to be the Kobo Drop logo. So Kobo Drop Lite version. So we're going to import that from /assets logos Lite. There we go. And we're going to put that there, Kobo Drop Lite. We're going to write Lite version of Kobo Drop logo. Let's see. There it is, all tiny. Then for the second div, or actually let's do the first div first. Then for the section, let's do a class name of background, gray 800. Good. The first div is going to have a class name of flex and max width of 7XL. It's going to have flex column, px of 8, py of 12, text gray of 300, lg of px 12, Excel is going to have margin auto. Cool. Let's see. Looking good. Then the second div is going to have a class of flex and flex column. Justify between gap of 12. And on the medium screen, it's going to be a flex row. And on the medium screen, it's going to have a gap of 0. Okay, let's see. Looking good. Perfect. Then after this image, we're going to have a text, a paragraph, start spending the smart way. Perfect. Then after this div, we're going to have another div. It's going to have a class of flex gap of flex and gap 10. It's going to have another div inside, the class name of flex and flex column and gap 2. Inside of this div, we're going to have a paragraph with a class name of text gray 400. Here it's going to say product. Then we're going to have a link element with an empty link. It's going to say overview. And we're going to copy this a couple of times. Next one is going to say features, then solutions, then contact, and releases. Then we are going to copy this entire div one time. Next one is going to say resources, blog, newsletter, events, help center, and support. Let's check it out. Great. Then under the second div here, we're going to have another div with a paragraph inside. It is going to say and copy, and like this, that is the sign, HTML sign for the copyright symbol, 2024, Kobo drop, all rights reserved. Let's check it out. Cool. Then after the second div here, we're going to have another div with a class name of width fit. It's going to have an h2 get the app. And then we're going to have another store links here, like so. Check it out. Perfect. Then after the second div here, we're going to have another div with a paragraph. Here we're going to add the copyright symbol in HTML format. So and copy and colon like this. 2024 Kobo drop. All rights reserved. Reserved, like so. Looking good. This div is going to have a class name of margin top 14. It's going to have flex, justify between, border top 2, border top gray 700, and padding top 10. The paragraph is going to have a class name of width 16 characters, text gray 400, and on medium it's going to have a width full. Nice. Okay. Then under the paragraph, we're going to have a div with a class name of flex and gap of 6. Then we're going to have a link with an href, https, and we're going to link to twitter.com. The target is going to be blank because it's going to open in a new tab, and inside of here we're going to have an image with the source of Twitter. Alt is going to be Twitter logo, and then we need to, of course, import this. Import Twitter from assets, logos, Twitter. Okay. Let's see. There we have Twitter. Let's now copy this 2 times. 1, 2. Now we have 2, 3 Twitters. Perfect. Next one is going to be facebook.com. Let's add the www here and www.linkedin.com. So Facebook, LinkedIn, and here it's going to be Facebook and LinkedIn. And we need to import those. Facebook, LinkedIn, like so. And there we have our links, and they are opening to the pages. The only thing missing now is the color here for the buttons and the fact that they are one over the other. So let's refactor those now. We are actually going to refactor the store links because we're going to send in a type here. So we're going to say type is going to be equal to btn types dot variant. What is btn types? Well, we have to actually define that within the store links. Inside of the store links, we're going to create a new enum, which is basically options. So btn types, and it's going to be one is going to be standard, the other one is going to be variant. Okay, we also need to create an interface for the store links props, because now we are taking a type and we are using the store link props. And we need to define that with type, and it can be either standard or the variant. And as we see here, we have chosen the button types. So we need to be able to access these button types inside of another component. So let's export them here. Export. And then if we start writing btn types here, perfect, variant. There we go. Now if we go to the store links, type is declared, but its value is never read. That's because we're going to make 2 different versions of this. One that is the normal one, and one that is the white one, basically the black and white one. So if type is equal to btn types standard, then we are gonna return this. And then let's copy that. But if type is equal variant, but then we're going to return something different. So then we are actually just going to remove this div and make that a React fragment instead. We're going to keep the text the same. We are going to add my4 here, and we're going to add a border, and the background we're going to say is transparent instead. px is going to be 2, py is going to be 1, text white, hover is going to be background zinc 950 still, and active is also going to be the same. So let's copy that class, paste it there, and let's see what we have. We also need to change this image here. So Google Play needs to be Google Play Bright. So let's get that, import Google Play Bright from assets, logos, Google Play Bright. Now we see that we have the Bright version. Perfect. We do need to go back though and alter where we have used. Now we see they don't show up here, the normal buttons, because we're not giving them a type yet. It's either a variant or a standard. So let's go to the hero section. Where we are using the StoreLink, we need to provide it a type. It's going to be btn types standard. And now we have it back here. We also need it back. Let's see, we have it back here. We also need it back in the reviews. Reviews, StoreLinks. So type, btn types, standard. Save. And let's close these. And there we go, they are back. So how is it folding when we decrease the size? Perfect. Okay. And that is it for our project. Now we have a fully functional landing page for our CoboJob financial app made with React and Tailwind. And it looks great across all devices using all these different breakpoints. Perfect. Now let's deploy this using Netlify. So go ahead and save in your VS Code. And we are going to bring up our GitHub desktop. It has recorded all the changes we have made. I'm going to say finish Kobo drop. I'm going to commit to main. I'm going to push the origin. And now I'm going to click view on GitHub. So here is the finished code. Then we're going to go to netlify.com. We're going to log in with our GitHub account. If you don't have a Netlify account, you can create an account with your GitHub account and connect those. When you have logged in, we're going to click this Add New Site. We're going to import an existing project. We're going to deploy with GitHub. It's going to connect. It's going to allow us to search. So let's search CoboDrop or whatever you called your repository. And we see that I have a CoboDrop app. I'm going to choose that. I'm going to give it a site name, deployed CoboDrop. You can check the availability. That's fine. We're going to leave everything on the standard settings. And we're going to hit this deploying deployed Gobo drop. That's meta. And after a minute or so, we see that our site has been published. So we can click this link now. And here we go, our fully deployed React and Tailwind app, ready to be shared and to impress. So I hope you liked this tutorial. I'll be making more React and more Tailwind tutorials in the future, but also more simple and basic HTML and vanilla CSS guides as well. If you enjoyed this video, I highly suggest the next video that is suggested for you. Until next time, see ya.